I'm Jeff Rubenstein from the PlayStation Blog here at the inFamous preview event in Seattle, along with Bruce Olberg, the co-lead programmer for Sucker Punch. Do we like that term?
I'm one of the lead programmers. I'm a co-founder of the company.
Well, that's good enough to answer the questions, right?
Yeah.
Now, these questions here are from our readers of the PlayStation Blog. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And they've got a lot of questions here.
Okay, all right. We'll see what I can do.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about good and evil gameplay.
Right.
WFMMK, that is his name, was asking, will good and evil result in different powers? Now, we know that that is the case, but let's elaborate on that and talk about the numbers of different powers out there.
So, thank you very much, WWMFK, for that question. So I think the thing about good and evil in inFamous is that it's not just a binary choice, that you don't have to be good and evil, the whole game. You actually you go back and forth between it. And depending on if you are good or evil at any particular time, you can actually choose to upgrade your powers in different ways. So as you play the game, you gain experience and you use that to purchase new powers. And then if you happen to be good, you can kind of purchase certain upgrades. And then if you happen to be evil, you can purchase other upgrades. And depending on where you are in the game, you may want to actually play a mission with a certain set, so it may actually make sense for you to maybe become more evil to play a particular mission so you can use the powers for that mission if you want. Maybe you don't want. Maybe you'll play the whole game through as good and then play the whole game through as evil. But definitely the system feeds on the things you do in the game, how you play it, some of the choices you make, feed into your experience, and then the experience lets you buy upgrades to the powers either on the good or the evil side.
So you don't have to play it as being only an angel or only a devil. You can actually play the gray area?
Yeah, you can play back and forth. And there's different, it's in the middle. I mean, you can be a little bit good and a little bit evil, or even more evil if you actually get all the way evil and do really, really evil stuff. You can get a little bit of extra power for a limited amount of time. It might be useful in some scenarios, but who knows, you may not want to be that evil because everybody in the city will run away from you and you can't get them to help you if you need it.
Okay, well, let's move on down the line now. Blackwater Merc, I don't know if that's his actual job, but it is his name. He was asking if there are different endings based on whether you're good or evil.
I wouldn't say there's different endings, but there are different things about the story that are revealed based on whether or not you're good or evil. So there's a lot of parts of the story that you may not see if you go good or evil. There's kind of a little bit of a difference in some of the end content at the end. I wouldn't say it's a different ending, but definitely throughout the game, there's a bunch of different spots where you actually don't see the same movie. You see a movie based on whether or not you happen to be good or evil at that point in time, and that actually reveals different parts of the story. So we've had lots of people who've played through the game all the way through and decided they wanted to play through again on the other side just so they could kind of see all of the parts of the story that they hadn't seen.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the combat. Trioptical was saying, look, we've seen a lot of ranged combat. That seems to be one of the primary moves, but how much melee is in there?
There's quite a bit of melee. A lot of the bad guys are pretty fierce when you get up close, but we do have melee upgrades to some of your melee powers during the game. So if you like doing melee, you can upgrade those particular electrical powers and use them. We wanted to have both kinds. We really value variety a lot in all of our games. So not only is there ranged versus melee combat, there's also some of the missions where maybe you shouldn't be fighting at all, and maybe not necessarily stealthy, but maybe you should be staying away and actually using like your snipers or trying to avoid trouble altogether. We really value variety, and so yes, there's melee, yes, there's ranged combat, and yes, there's even other stuff that's like, how do you solve this puzzle of getting someone out from somewhere else with bad guys around that's maybe doesn't even fit into either of those categories.
Okay, we're answering your questions from the PlayStation Blog with Bruce, a lead programmer on inFamous. So let's take another question here. So how difficult was it to say, Sue Mizell asks, we're going to make something new? Now, you've been around, and you've been through Sly Cooper 1, 2, and 3.
Sure.
What's it like making something so different, and how difficult is that?
It's really, really difficult. I mean, inFamous was about 6 or 7 huge hurdles that we had to climb all at once. It was on the PlayStation 3, a new platform. We'd never used the PlayStation 3. We'd always done stuff on the PlayStation 2 and on the N64 before that. So the PlayStation was completely new to us. We were doing an open world game, a sandbox game where you can go anywhere. There's no load screens. Sly had always had kind of load screens and levels. We were doing a realistic game that was taking place in an actual real world environment, not a cartoony one. We're doing a much larger universe. I mean, the city is huge. It takes you like 20 minutes to get from one end of the first island to the other, just walking. And so, kind of the hugeness, the open worldness. We're doing a kind of a shooter. I mean, in that he shoots with his hands in some ways. It's a different gameplay than what we did with all the Sly games, which are mostly about stealth and exploration. So all of those things are huge, giant obstacles that we had to overcome. I mean, the streaming guys did a great job. The rendering people did awesome. The artists, you had to figure out how to build such a large world with a team. We really only had like 60 people working on the game, and it's huge and giant and it has a lot of variety. So really, there's no one thing that was the biggest thing. We had a ton of hard work to do, and I'm really glad that these 3.5 years are over. I'm going to take a little bit of a break.
You can't take the break until you're done answering just a few more of the questions from our readers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news there. Yeah. Okay, so Deformicalizer wants to know, and this is a little bit weird, why is the spelling of infamous lowercase and then uppercase? Is there a reason for that?
I don't know. I might have been spell correct in my email program. I'm not sure. But, I think part of the game when we were first starting out was that you could be that was the duality, that you could be famous as a hero. But then we started thinking about, well, what's the opposite of being famous? Well, infamous is kind of opposite of being famous. So I think the in is lowercase because it can kind of almost be taken off because you can be famous or infamous in this game. So really we're trying to accentuate the duality of what you can do inside the game.
That actually makes sense.
Wow, great. I just made that up.
I was going to say, at first I wasn't sure that you knew how that was going to come out, but actually thinking about it, it does make sense. All right, and one last question, and that is from Zabby H. Will there be optional missions for you to do, or just basic storyline progression missions?
There are a ton of optional missions in Infamous. In fact, there may be way more than actual story missions. Like the story mission is a little bit linear, a little bit like kind of, a couple missions opening up and then you kind of close in to a particular mission, like when you meet a boss, perhaps. But like all over the city, every single neighborhood, most buildings all have mini missions that are all based on Cole trying to kind of take control of the city. They're kind of separate from the main story of Cole finding out his history and why he ended up getting these powers. And there's a ton of different things to do. Really, I don't even know what the count is right now, but it's dozens and dozens and dozens. And they're all over the place. And really, that's another way to add variety. We wanted the game not to be just, okay, let's kill guys over and over again for 20 minutes, then another 20, then an hour, and then hours and hours. We really want to have a lot of variety. And so we have lots of different types of mini missions all over Empire City.
All right, thanks for answering our questions, Bruce, and thank you for being able to keep some energy going after 3.5 years of hard work.
Thank you very much. I think I'll collapse now.